Before we begin Off the Record, I need to share something important. When federal funding was cut, WKAR lost $1.6 million. Thanks to cost-saving measures and community support, we've closed much of that gap. But we still face a $500,000 shortfall, and we can't finish the job without you. Your financial support keeps programs like Off the Record freely available to everyone in Mid-Michigan. How can you help? Become a sustaining donor today. Already a sustainer? Please consider increasing your monthly contribution. Visit WKAR.org/OTR to donate, or click the link in the description. Now, Off the Record.
A busy news week in our town, and you're now part of it as we have Governor Gretchen Whitmer one-on-one to talk about her state of the state and other issues. So sit in with us as we get the inside out. Off the Record.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Bellwether Public Relations, a full-service strategic communications agency partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and issue advocacy. Learn more at bellwetherpr.com. And now, this edition of Off the Record with Tim Skubic.
Here we go. We're in Studio C. This has been a busy week. We've all earned our keep this week, have we not, guys? Yeah.
Sleep. What is sleep?
Yes, there you go. It's nice to have you folks on board. Post State of the...
What this show is for.
Oh, man. And we're off. We've already done the analysis of the speech, so let's talk about the Speaker's property tax thing. Yeah. When you heard that story first blush, what did you think, Mr. Mauger?
You know, I'm a details person. I like reading. How do you make a plan work? Who's this going to impact? Who's going to bear the brunt of this? And the details aren't there, you know. So it's very hard, I think, for even Democrats in the legislature or Hall's, Republican Party to even know how to respond to this because the details aren't there.
From 30,000 feet, your reaction was?
I mean, it's an interesting idea coming from a Republican leader to throw out something where he says it's going to impact the wealthiest people in the state of Michigan to provide a property tax cut for everyone else in the state. The issue is, again, what are the details? How do you get $4 billion in sales tax revenue from just the wealthiest people in the state? It's going to have a broader impact than that.
The governor said it was remarkable, not the proposal, but the fact that the Republican speaker proposed a tax increase.
In an election year. I was shocked. In fact, I turned to Rick when I first saw it and I said, wait, is it April Fool's Day? What is going on? I was really surprised. Look, we sort of knew something was happening because last week Hall basically was like, this is how we're gonna figure out a way to make up for the fact that he wants to just completely cut property taxes.
He has to find money to keep the schools and local governments semi-whole.
So this increase on services, luxury services, $4.7 billion. But again, I think the first thing was shock. And then the second was like, wait a second, are we back in 2007 and does no one remember how that happened? I mean, that was part of a Democratic idea of Jennifer Granholm's to do a service tax. It was panned. Nobody liked it.
Republicans, they passed it.
Because they needed to figure out a way to figure out the budget. But then, they repealed it. So I don't know. I was just really surprised.
One, leave it to Matt Hall to steal the spotlight, at least for a few minutes, as the governor was
the day before the State of the State.
Mm-hmm. Two, I mean, it's interesting because, there is a political context here, which is we've got a Republican here who's saying, soak the rich. Mm-hmm. And think about this going into
an election. He did not use those words, okay?
But
he didn't say so.
When you say a super luxury tax,
just a second. Clubs and marina memberships, you're basically saying that.
He did not even use the word rich.
Okay.
Okay, it was
he
families
used the word luxury.
Yes. Okay. So, families that have higher income. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I digress. Go ahead.
Boy, did you digress.
Yes. I'm getting even.
So you've got a Republican basically saying, we're going to soak the rich. And we're heading into an election year. Yeah. So when Democrats are talking about, are pushing back against, the whole super elitism kind of thing, Matt Hall gets to go, hey, remember me, Mr. Luxury Tax? And don't forget, he has talked about this in the context not just of a legislative proposal, but as a ballot proposal.
No, he's not doing anything on the ballot.
No, we're talking
He
about,
is not.
we're talking about property taxes possibly being a question on the ballot.
Oh, but from somebody else, but not him.
He has.
No, he told me we're not going to do the ballot proposal. I've concluded that's a non-starter, and we're going to do it in the
Interesting.
legislature.
Okay.
I
We'll
got
see.
it on tape, guys.
Okay.
Okay, honest, trust me.
If you've
Wait a
got
minute,
it
I'm a
on
journalist. Why would you trust me?
But at the same time, it still puts the issue out there in the context of Republicans being the party of populism. And if Democrats are going to argue against it, then it's like, so you're going to be friendly to the super wealthy?
But that's why the details matter here. I'm going to keep coming back to this.
Yeah.
He has a problem with the base of his party, Matt Hall does. The Republican Party as a whole does. Their base wants all property tax gone, or they want all income tax gone, which is tens of billions of
They
dollars.
want something that's going to be
Something
a big
dramatic.
tax cut. Yeah.
And I think
Substantive.
Matt Hall knows he's got to do something on this. So what kind of plan does he throw out? Hey, we're going to get rid of all these property taxes, and then we're going to replace it with something else. And he is saying, hey, it's these luxury services. If you talk to people who have studied this, and a lot of Democrats have looked at this because they've wanted to do something similar in the past. They've wanted to say, hey, how can we tax services that rich people use and try to lower taxes for everyone else? The problem has been, according to them, that you can only get about $300 million in revenue from taxing services that rich people primarily use.
There's so many expensive things they can do.
But $300 million
How much
and
money are you going to
4
get from private airplane rides?
300 million, what the Democrats say they've looked at before. I've heard this from multiple Democrats. And 4.7 billion is what Matt Hall is saying. What is going on? I mean, those aren't even the same city.
Ballpark.
People with long memories will remember the late 80s and the 1990s when property taxes were a huge issue, and so was the disparity in per pupil funding between wealthy and poor districts. And there were, you remember this, that there were plans being just thrown out right and left and doing exactly what you're talking about, Craig, which is, you put it down and it's a half-cent increase in the sales tax plus this much income tax relief, property tax, blah, blah, blah. And everybody is running the numbers and saying this works, this doesn't, until finally, they basically flung two things up against the wall and gave voters a choice.
I think what I'm really trying to figure out is, are we spending a lot of time on something that just simply is not going to happen in an election year? I mean, in the end, to Craig's point, absolutely that something needs to, or that there is a want to be done about property taxes. But are we really talking about in the year 2026, when we had a late budget, and Matt Hall still saying we're not even going to get a budget done on time, wouldn't promise that on Wednesday night to us, or Michigan, or his caucus, or lawmakers, or Democrats. Is this actually something that we think can be some sort of grand bargain that can be figured out in an election year? And that is what I'm still really trying to understand, when it feels like they're just talking past each other.
I think the answer is a tentative, squishy yes.
Okay.
I would not rule it out, as you're about to see when we get to the governor.
It really bugs me to agree with you.
Well, that scares me. We're going to hear from the governor, but she said, look, I'm willing to look at any genuine proposal, and she pointed out, as you did, I need to see the details. I got it, devil's in the details, but she didn't close the door. She didn't say this is a non-starter. She said the speaker and I have a good working relationship. I'm, quote, not going to say anything incendiary about it, and let's see where the details are and see where we go. So at this early read, dismiss it at your own peril.
I'm not dismissing it, but I will say that, again, I just think what we have seen this past year with the two caucuses working together with the governor, that it hasn't been all unicorns and birthday cakes.
But it's not supposed to be.
That's fair. But do they really want to do this?
Particularly incendiary session in terms of the dialogue.
But they got the thing done, and they got a road plan. And she turned to the speaker.
They got the thing done days late. They did get a roads plan. They did, and she talked about it.
A record low number of laws last year.
Yeah,
Well, you don't care about that.
No, I mean, to Craig's point too, right? Like, I mean, what got done between June and October?
Yeah. Here's the good news for all the lobbyists in town. they have a full-time job now because these guys and ladies in the lobby corps killed that Jennifer Granholm sales tax. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I
you
mean,
are
remember
absolutely
the
right.
joke about
Although you didn't have to work too hard to do it.
when we got the list came out of what was and wasn't on the services, and then it was like looking at who actually.
Golf.
You're right. Well,
Golf.
and bronze shoes. I remember you talking on NPR about being tanning beds. It was tanning services. Yeah.
I mean, the lobby corps has been looking for stuff to work on because there have been so few laws moving through the legislature and getting signed by the governor. And it's been bad times for them for a while now because it's been so slow in Lansing. This, I think a lot of them, and I've received text messages from some of them noting that newspapers are among the things Matt Hall has identified. And, they're already out there.
Political ads.
Yeah, political ads.
Yeah,
they're already fishing out there, I think, for clients on some of these things. So, I mean, that you're going to see Lansing maybe get more active. Is there some, we know Hall and Whitmer like compromises. They throw out different plans. They reach a deal. Is there already some type of path forward on this where you do some services and maybe you get a property tax cut that's not as big as Hall's floating, but it's something down the middle? I'm not ruling out a possibility like that.
And don't forget, all the machinations to create a wedge moment to force that compromise.
Remember, a huge tax cut for taxpayers in an election year is something that both parties can take home and see what a good boy and girl I am. Here's what I did for you, and I taxed the rich in order to do it. What's wrong with that message?
No, it's going to be
part of the genius of it.
It's setting up to be a really fascinating year on top of what we know is an election year unlike any other than we've seen in years.
And speaking of fascinating, let's listen to Governor Whitmer. Governor, first of all, thank you for giving us this time. We appreciate that very much. Let's assume for the moment that you are not Governor Gretchen Whitmer, that you're TV commentator Gretchen Whitmer. Give me a pithy 30-second analysis of that speech last night.
Oh, it was half as long as the one the night before and twice as good.
So what is I don't know if that's pithy content-wise.
It's just what someone said to me, and I thought it was funny.
Well, seriously, did you nail it last night?
I felt good about it. I felt like I was focused, intentionally focused on what I think is possible this year. We got split government, we've got an election year, it's a tough time politically, rhetorically speaking, and I think it was important to focus on some things that are possible, right? It doesn't mean they all get done, but if we can find some common ground around literacy, housing, and healthcare, well, then that's a damn good deal for the people of Michigan. And that's why I wanted to focus on what I thought was possible, not just lay down things that are aspirational or divisive, but to really, I think, drill down on some things that can be done. So, yeah, I felt pretty good about it.
So now you're going to take this gig on the road. Why?
I love hitting the road, Tim. You know me. I don't love the pomp and circumstance of a state of the state. I don't love to give a long speech. What I love is to engage with Michiganders and to sit down and have a cup of coffee with someone and ask them the question I always do, which is, what can I do that'll make your life better? Tell me what's going on with you. And did you know about these things that we were able to get done these last couple of years, or that's available to you and your family? So I'm going to be hitting the road, the GSD tour, and listening and sharing what we've gotten accomplished and helping people connect to opportunity.
So when you're on the road, what do you say to those people who still in their hearts believe that you're running for president when indeed you are not?
I just listen and I continue to ask my questions and stay focused.
Well, I don't think that answered my question, okay? When they ask you that, you tell them what?
I tell them I'm not here as a candidate for anything. I'm here as your governor who really cares about you, who really wants to spend every minute I'm in office focusing on things that make your life better.
Let's talk about Mr. Hall's property tax cut plan. Are there any elements of that plan that you're willing to sign off on today?
Yeah, you know what? There's a plan's not been introduced. He gave a press conference. He's made some statements, but there's not a whole lot to analyze yet and what it really means. So I'm one that believes if an idea is genuine, put it on the table. Let's see what's possible. I put a plan on the table to give people some tax relief that I know we can budget, that we can make all the numbers balance, and that we can still, fund the things that are really important to the people of Michigan. I don't know about his yet. There's still a lot of questions, but I will have that conversation. But you and I both know, Tim, that we've seen other leaders push policies like this through, and it's easy to talk about them, and you can see some of the wisdom in it. It's a lot harder to get something, this big done. I mean, to have a Speaker of the House put up, about $5 billion in different taxes on the table is kind of remarkable. So I'd like to see where he wants to go with it.
Well, can you see yourself in any way, shape, or form supporting a luxury tax, expanding the 6% sales tax on the rich?
You know what, Tim? When Jennifer Granholm was governor, she pushed a similar situation through, and I voted for it at the time. So it all depends on what's really in it and whether or not it balances with the budget.
Well, you voted for it. Wait, go ahead.
And if you can put the votes together, those are big unanswered questions, and we still don't even have a paper that tells exactly what's all in or not in what he's talking about. So we'll see.
Here's a tough question. You voted for it, but then did you vote to repeal it when the pressure from all the lobbyists descended on the Capitol?
I voted for it. Governor Granholm, I think, made a different decision and changed everything, but none of it was easy. I can tell you that much. And that was quite a while ago when it was easier to get some things done in Lansing. So we'll see.
So I'm going to report tonight that you are open to Speaker Hall's $5 billion property tax cut proposal, waiting for the details. Fair?
I think you can put on that Whitmer welcomes all genuine ideas that are balanced to the table for conversation.
Do you find it interesting that he rejected out of hand all of the tax increases you had in your new budget, and now he comes to town with his own tax increase? Did that strike you as unusual, madam?
I think it's unusual for a Republican leader to do that. Yeah, it was, it's interesting. You never know what calculations go into those types of decisions, but I'll like to see where it goes, and certainly like to see if his fellow Republicans are on board with that big tax too.
You're not going to get a bunch, do you think?
I mean, if history's an indicator, I would suspect not, but we'll see. Matt Hall brought some surprises before. He put that tax up on the board for part of our road fix, and so I give him credit for that. We'll see what happens.
Do you believe for one moment there is $5 billion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse in your budget?
No.
Is that just made up out of whole cloth?
It's the same talking point. I don't get worked up over the way that they talk about the budget. It's predictable. This is kind of what always happens, and it's reflective of what's going on in, the rhetoric coming out of Washington, D.C. None of it is anything that makes me rethink the priorities that we've set, the hard decisions that we've had to make, the paying down of $28 billion of state debt, the increased credit rating we have. I mean, we've written and enacted good budgets, a high rainy day fund balance. I mean, we've been good stewards of the state taxpayer dime, and we'll continue to be so long as I'm governor.
So if it's not $5 billion, what is the number, if there is one?
I mean, Tim, in any organization, even WKAR's or Gretchen Whitmer's household, there's probably some efficiencies to be had. But no, I think that those talking points that there's this rampant, huge ticket items that can be cut without the people of Michigan paying a price for it. Or it's just, it's kind of politics today. I don't put a whole lot of stock in that.
And are there ghost employees in your administration?
There are a lot of hardworking state employees in the state of Michigan. And I got to tell you, I highlighted two last night, the DNR conservation officer and the Grand Blanc Township officer who showed up after a shooting. There are some wonderful state employees who work really hard every single day, and I'm grateful to count myself among them for the next 10 months.
So are there employees that are not employees that money has been allocated for?
No.
So Mr. Hall is, he seems to be in an alternate parallel world.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we have different vantage points. I'm not going to say anything incendiary. We've built a pretty decent working relationship. I expect the opposing party to throw their best at me, and we'll have some tough debates and ultimately tough negotiations. And at the end of the day, we got to find common ground for the people of Michigan. So I don't take anything personally. I think it's important that we stay focused on what's possible, and that's where my head's at.
Is not that kind of rhetoric, though, counterproductive? It's just it's something that takes your eye off the ball.
It doesn't take my eye off the ball, but I do think that we've got a short window of time. We got a lot to accomplish. I was very thoughtful in putting, certain items, 3 items, literacy, housing, and healthcare on the table, because I know whether you're Republican, Democrat, or independent, or you haven't voted, these are the fundamentals Michiganders need us to stay focused on. If we focus on them, I think we can do a lot of good for the people of Michigan. And we got a short window because we know they're going to all want to hit the campaign trail and start campaigning, but we got to get this budget done and on time this year.
So I assume at some point the critics vis-a-vis your literacy are going to say, why did it take you 7 years to discover phonics?
Oh man, we've been working on this the whole time. Every administration has been working on this. We as a nation are falling behind. Michigan is not unique. In fact, we are 44th in 4th grade readings. It's unacceptable. So one of the things I think that's been a real problem here is we've changed our tactics every couple of years. We're all impatient. I'm impatient. I want the best for my kids and I want it now. And I know that's how all Michigan parents feel and how legislators feel. But changing the strategy every couple of years, having 400 different methods of teaching literacy does not work. So science of reading, which is what they did in Mississippi, and they committed to it long term, that's what's turned it around. We changed the law. We're on the path. Now we got to commit to seeing it through and wrapping our kids and teachers with the supports they need to be successful doing it. And that's really what I was talking about last night.
But why didn't you propose phonics 7 years ago or 5 years ago, and rather than go through these 400 different things that obviously did not work?
I think the Mississippi Miracle, as some people call it, was the Mississippi Marathon, as I was being tested during much of that time. And now we know that they've had success doing that, all the things that we've been able to do these last few years. So it's been a few years that we've been really changing how we want to teach literacy. We know that we've got all the ingredients to be successful here. We've got to commit to it, and we've got to wrap our kids and teachers with the supports they need to be able to get it done.
You talked about your relationship with Mr. Hall. We have not talked in quite a while about your relationship with the gentleman in the White House. What is the status of that today vis-a-vis how many phone calls have the two of you exchanged in the last year?
Oh, I don't know. He'll call me once in a while. I probably talk to him twice a month.
But you've called him personally, and he's called you back personally, correct?
Yes.
And so is the relationship cooled in the wake of what's going on now that wasn't a year ago, or is it about the same, or is it better?
I think it's about the same. Obviously, we see the world very differently on about 95 out of 100 things. And neither of us pulls punches, but at the same token, if there's 5 things out of 100 I can find common ground with and get some things done for Michigan, then I'm going to take every one of those opportunities. But, I think that he's got a lot going on right now. We don't agree on tariffs. We don't agree on the ACA cuts. We don't agree on how we treat people or deploy, troops within our states. I mean, there's a lot of differences there. And yet I'm keeping the lanes of communication open because Michigan needs the federal government sometimes, whether it's, in the wake of an ice storm or it is for Selfridge. That relationship has helped me deliver some important things for Michigan. And I'm not one to, take all the credit. I gave him credit for that in the speech last night because that's important.
How many feelers have you had for somebody to come to work for you after you leave office?
I'm not entertaining any conversations like that.
Does that mean nobody's ever called you and said, look, when you get out, we got a nice cushy job for you?
I have not entertained conversations like that. I think people know that I don't think that that's appropriate. I am governor through the end of the year. I don't want to do anything that could raise any sort of a conflict. But so no, I'm not having any of those conversations.
Could you see yourself as a TV commentator?
Why, you retiring, Tim?
Oops, don't mention that word. No R words. No, I am not. But the question's still on the table. You could do that, couldn't you?
I don't know. Yeah, it might be fun. We'll see. I really don't know what I'm going to do next. I know no one believes that. It's been the last few months have been really hard personally and, with my dad and everything else going on. And so I think, it'll be nice to just take a breath and think about it when I get a moment, but I haven't had that yet.
Would probably take 3 or 4 months off and just veg out?
Well, see, I'm no good idle. I got to tell you, I get into trouble, if I'm idle. So I got to have a plan, but I'll start thinking about that in the coming months, probably.
Did you find it interesting last night in the speech, and I'm sure you recognize this as you said it, you announced that this was your last speech. Tell the people that didn't see the speech what happened after you said that, Governor.
That was, everyone clapped.
Yes. Okay. What did you think when they started clapping?
Oh gosh, I know the Democrats were clapping because we've gotten some amazing things done. I'm sure some of the Republicans were clapping because, they won't have me to kick around next year. I don't care why they were clapping. I delivered the speech I wanted to give, and I think by and large, people recognize that it was focused on the people of Michigan, and that's the most important thing.
So what was it like giving the last speech?
It felt good. It was, I reflect on, all the speeches I've given, but also all the states of the state that I sat through. It was just kind of a moment of deep gratitude and kind of amazing chance to take stock of what we've accomplished. Like, it was really pretty remarkable. And I remember sitting as a freshman legislator when John Engler was giving his second to last State of the State. And I sat through his last one, and then all 8 of Jennifer Granholm's, the first 4 of Rick Snyder's. And then I was out of office, of course, for a few years. And then now I've given my 8th. Like, it's a lot has happened. A lot has changed. Some of it for the better, some of it not for the better, with the rhetoric in this country and the ugliness and how people treat each other and social media. But we've come a long way, and just to take it all in and was pretty amazing. My kids were not there because one's in law school and the other's working, and my dad obviously was not there, and my husband was home with the flu, but my brother and his girls were there, and a couple of wonderful friends who've been with me every step of the way were as well, and surrounded by all my team who I couldn't do any of this without. It felt really good.
Governor, it's always great to talk to you.
Thanks, Tim. You too.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Bellwether Public Relations, a full-service strategic communications agency partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and issue advocacy. Learn more at bellwetherpr.com. For more Off the Record, visit WKAR.org. Michigan public television stations have contributed to the production costs of Off the Record.